Hi everybody, today we're going to work on the very first applique of the month table runner project. This is January's project called Hearts in Bloom. Let's go over all of our supplies and what we need to do to prep, and then we'll get started. Applique of the month is offered as both a doorstep and a digital version. I have the doorstep version here provided to me by Kimberbell. Thank you so much. If you're interested in subscribing, there is a link below. As a Kimberbell affiliate, I get a tiny commission from any purchases made using any of my links. More important than that, it lets Kimberbell know that people are watching my videos. Let's go over our supplies. There's a 5x7 and an 8x12. You'll see I've got little sticky notes over the 5x7. I'm going to make the 8x12. I do that so I don't miscut any of my fabric. The physical version this month included a roll of paper tape, which is great. We always need paper tape. I have everything cut because this is a table runner and we're doing one on each end. You'll see there's two sets of all the same fabric. The physical version this month also included some felt and embroidery leather. Embroidery leather is a PVC product, not an animal product. We'll also be using fusible backing, and I already did that. I'll talk about fabric prep in a minute, and wash away sticky back stabilizer. The physical version comes with the runner. I did pre-wash it, let it air dry, spray starched it, and iron it. Let's measure it and see if it shrank from my unboxing video. I measured it at 12 by 36, which I think is the same that it measured at before. The only thing I noticed was, I think, a very slight shrink right here, and that might just be the thread that's used to attach the trim. A little bit of pulling in, but like really slight. So I wouldn't worry about it, but I did not put it in the dryer. I went ahead and washed it on cold, hang dry, and then I spray starched it with this faultless heavy finish and gave it a good press. You'll want to cut your fabric according to the instructions and according to whichever size project you're going to be making. So you've got your 5x7 sizes and your 8x12 sizes. It does tell you on page 3, the first step, to starch and press both fabrics well. I starched them with this faultless heavy finish, and it does shrink the fabric, but there was plenty of fabric. I didn't have any issues with that, and I added the fusible backing to my fabrics. The thread colors for this project are given with both Glide and Hemingworth brands. The Stark Salmon and the Cornflower Blue are Hemingworth brands. For the Glide, I pulled my Glide color card. I've shown this several times before. I'll go ahead and link that below. Some of the colors I really didn't have a good match for, like this space color. I picked more of a navy. What I do when I don't think I have a good match with my color card is I'll flip through the instructions and I'll look for where the colors are used, find the fabric, hold it next to the fabric, and decide if I think it looks good. A good example of that is I have nothing that looked like the Hemingworth Cornflower Blue. I looked it up online. It really didn't have something that looked, matchy-matchy. So I took the stripe fabric and went to my thread wall, and I picked this color. I thought that that looked pretty close to the color of the stripes, and it will look nice against that fabric. For the colors Taffy and Dark Salmon, I'm going to use the same color. I thought the color variation between those two threads was really slight and decided just to go with one color. These are my thread conversions. The PF is Floriani. The one that starts with S is a sim thread. I like to write them out. I'll put them with my threads. I have all my threads here in my Creativity Blooms leather snap tray. I have a video on how to embroider on a leather snap tray. This is a free download. I'll make sure all of that's linked below for you. I'm going to be using a regular 7511 machine embroidery needle. And I have all my scissors ready because I'm not sure which one I'm going to use for the project. Since this is applique with no background quilting, I might give the duckbill scissors a try. I also have my snips and my double curve applique scissors. I'll link the scissors for you below. We're going to start by loading our wash away sticky back stabilizer. I am using an 8x12 hoop today. I've cut a piece of the wash away sticky back. You'll notice that one side is like paper and one side is like fabric. You want the side that looks like glossy paper facing up. Here's the paper side. It can be kind of hard to hoop because of the paper. It's not as flexible as a regular fabric stabilizer. Let's go ahead and push that down. It might take a couple of tries. There we go. It's laundry day too if you hear funny noises in the background. I'm going to get my screwdriver and tighten that. Once you've got your hoop tightened, you want to grab a pair of scissors or a seam ripper. You're going to scratch the edge of the paper all the way around. That's going to help you lift it and peel it off. I'm using a pair of scissors that I use to cut sticky things. I don't mind if I get sticky on it. I'm going to grab a seam ripper, kind of use that to pick up the paper. There we go. And then you just want to peel away the paper. The sticky side is now exposed. If you put a hole in your stabilizer, I put a little hole in it right there. You can flip it to the back and add a piece of paper tape. This isn't too crucial because I didn't poke it all the way through and it's not where we're going to be embroidering, but I'll add the tape anyway just in case. We're ready to head over to the machine. We're over at the machine. I'm on a Baby Lock Meridian. My files are on USB. Got a little folding metal book stand there to hold my instructions. The first thing we want to do is stitch the centering crosshairs. Let's bring those up. I have a neutral colored thread on my machine. It's just a beige colored thread. There's your centering crosshairs. Hit set, hit embroidery. Let's stitch those out. You're going to stitch those out right on the sticky stabilizer. That's all you do for this part. We're going to take this off our machine, go back over to the table. We're at the table. It tells us to fold this month's blank in half lengthwise. Fold it right sides together so you see the back when you fold it, okay? And we're folding lengthwise. So long, 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 long. We've got it folded lengthwise. Now we're going to fold this part, this is our trim, up. You're going to fold it up 6 inches if you're doing the 8x12 or 4 inches if you're doing the 5x7, but it tells you to exclude the trim. I'm going to grab a ruler. I'm making the larger one the 8x12. There's the number 6. I'm lining it up right here with the edge of the trim, and it tells us to fold it up. So what I'm going to do is just make a little mark here, just to sort of keep my place right there. And I'm going to fold it up like that. I'm going to make sure it's nice and straight, make sure I did that even. Let's double check our measurements. Here's the bottom of the trim, 6.5, so I guess I overfolded. There, now it's 6 inches. You can always do that. You can double check your measurements. So this is lined up, the ruler's lined up with the bottom of the trim, 6 inches, maybe like 6 1/16, that's okay. Folded up. I'm going to take this and bring it off to the side. Here's my embroidery hoop. Here's the part that slides into the machine. My centering crosshairs are a little hard to see. I lined them up with some lines on my cutting mat. Right here and right here. So the center is right there. When you look at the picture in the instructions, you can see the fold in half and the fold up. What I just did was like this, fold up. So I've got it set off to the side like this. I need to rotate it. Here it is like this. We're going to rotate it like that. Here's the fold up part. We want to take this folded corner and line it up inside this section right here. So right there, line up your fold. I'm going to give it a light press, it's sticky stabilizer, and then line up that fold with that part of the crosshair. So I'm using this part here and this part here. Going to give it a little bit of a push. We're going to unfold. Here's the trim, and this is the wrong side. Here's where this fold and this fold crossed, and it lines up with the center line. So I did a good job with my folding. We'll unfold, and now I see the right side of the runner. If you unfold and you see the wrong side, you folded it backwards, which is what I did the first time. This is a sticky stabilizer. I'm just pressing it down, and that's going to help it stick. It's going to keep it from moving. Now our runner is centered. What I like to do with projects where I've got extra stuff, like you've got all this extra, you do not want this to get caught under your hoop. You want to make sure you get it out of the way. however you want to secure it. You can tape it up, roll it up, clip it up. Remember, we're going to have to slide this into our machine. For the moment, I'm going to grab a couple of clips, add a clip, and add a clip here. That way I can adjust when I get over to the machine, but I want to make sure that this is going to be out of the way. After I slide this onto my machine, I can roll this over the arm of the machine and it'll still be out of the way. So make sure you've got that nice and pressed, and you'll feel those lines, the crosshair lines, but when we get rid of the stabilizer, it's a wash away stabilizer, that'll pull out. We're ready to take this back to our machine. I'm back at the machine, I've got this slipped on, and then I can move this out of the way. I just need to keep an eye on this as it stitches out and make sure that this doesn't get caught. As it's embroidering, remember your hoop is going to move within the arm, so definitely keep an eye on this. I wouldn't say this is something to get up and walk away from as you're working on it. Let's load our file. You're either going to work on the 5x7 or the 8x12. I'm going to work on the 8x12 design today. They're both a single design. So the 5x7 is the same thing, it's just smaller. You don't have to stitch it out in two parts. We'll hit set and embroidery. A quick note up at the top, it tells me this is a 40-minute stitch out. That's just the stitching. Remember that we're going to be doing some applique and placing things, tacking down, trimming. So if you're on a schedule, take that into account. This will take longer than 40 minutes. You'll notice the first thing that comes up on your screen is a box. I believe this is a basting box to help hold your runner down and hold it in place because we're not going to be trimming anything. We're using a wash away sticky back. I don't feel like I need to stitch this out. If I didn't have the sticky back stabilizer, let's say all I had was a light mesh cutaway or a tearaway, something where the runner might move, I would probably tape it in place and go ahead and stitch out that basting box. But since I don't need this, I'm going to hit my needle minus plus and go forward. You see what looks like the top of the vase. That's the first step of our instructions. It says to stitch the vase top placement line, and we're using color B, which is azure. This is the color number I have picked out for the azure. Azure? How do you say that? I'm not sure. I'm putting this on my machine. I've got my thread loaded. I still have this in clips and just have it sitting on top of the embroidery machine arm. It's not heavy and our hoop will move back and forth. This should be just fine like that. Let's go ahead and stitch out our vase top placement line. You want to grab your vase top fabric, which is directional. They have it going like this, top to bottom. I cut mine as a 4-inch square. It said to cut 3.5 by 4. I didn't want to have to worry about figuring out which way it needed to go and how to line up my stripes when I was cutting the fabric, and there was plenty of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and pull this towards me and make sure I have it straight and add my tape. I've got this nice and straight, I think. I've got it covering the placement line and taped. Let's stitch the tack down. You want to trim away everything outside the tack down line. I'm going to try the duckbill scissors today. If you've never used these, this part is the duckbill and it helps cover your stitches so you don't accidentally trim into your stitches. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the extra. Once you have that trimmed, we're going to stitch the placement line for the bottom part of our vase. You want to grab your fabric for the vase bottom, cover the placement line. I might fuss with this a little bit, see which part of the print I can get on the vase, and then I'll stitch my tack down. Just like before, we need to trim away everything that's outside of that tack down line. This is all trimmed. I added a piece of tape here and up toward the top just to help keep this secure. We're leaving the same thread on our machine. We're going to stitch out the blue heartstrings details. It's going to stitch a couple of lines, and then I'm going to stitch out the placement lines for the felt. To grab your felt, make sure you cover the placement lines. You can add a piece of tape and then stitch the tack down and trim. Once you've got these trimmed, we stitch out the pink heartstrings detail. It has us stitch that out in the color Cornflower Blue. I'm going to stitch it out in this color. This is the color that I picked to use for both taffy and dark salmon. I think this is going to look nicer with the pink felt. We've got blue with blue felt. To me, if I have blue with pink felt, it's just going to bother me. Personal preference, so I'm going to stitch it out with this color. We're stitching out the placement line for the pink hearts. The instructions tell you to switch to color D, which is taffy. Stitch those out, and you're going to use your pink embroidery leather, cover the placement line, tack it down, and trim. I did use my snips to trim the embroidery leather, especially this one. This one's really tiny and you had to get into that little V. These were a little easier to work with. The next step, we stitch out in dark salmon. I'm going to go ahead and use the same thread that I have on my machine. We're going to stitch out the branches. This is a long stitch out. Check your bobbin. If you don't have a full bobbin, now's a good time to put one in. Let's stitch out our branches. Once the stems have stitched out, we're going to switch to the color Azure, and we're going to stitch out the medium flower fill. Next, switch to the color Ruby. We're going to stitch out the dark flower fills. Once those two flowers have stitched out, we're going to switch to color F, which is Cornflower Blue Hemingworth brand. I picked this color of Floriani. We're going to stitch out a couple of light flower fills and then also some center details on the dark flowers. Next, we switch to the color Taffy. We're going to stitch out the light flowers center details. Next, we're going to switch to the color they call Space. Mine is more of a navy blue. It's going to stitch out the detail for the center flower, and then after that, we're going to stitch out the vase middle satin outline. I'll go ahead and run those two steps together. Going to switch to the Cornflower Blue, whatever you're using for that. We're going to stitch out the vase satin outline and the vase middle detail. The next two steps stitch out the text. It has us using the color Dark Salmon for All You Need Is, and then the color Space for Love. I really want to stitch the word love in red, so I'm going to switch that to the color they're calling Ruby. Since I'm switching that to red, I don't think I want the pink right next to the red. I'm going to use the color that I picked for Azure Blue and stitch out All You Need Is in this color, and then the word love in red. So you'll get to see what this looks like when you switch the colors a little bit. This is all stitched out. I love the love in red. I'm really glad I changed that to red. I feel like it kind of anchors the design here and it balances it with the red flowers up on top. I do like the original look as well, but I really prefer the red over the dark blue here. So personal preference. If you decide to switch thread colors, make sure you make a note, because now I have to stitch out the second one and I want to be sure that I stitch it out the same way. Or if you stitch it out and you change your threads and you don't like it, you can always stitch out the other side in different colors. It doesn't matter. I'm going to stitch out the other side of the runner. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll talk about how to get rid of this stabilizer. I've stitched out the other side. We want to get this out of our hoop. If you've got tape on here, you can take the tape off. It may stick to the stabilizer, which is fine. And then you want to unscrew this and get this out of your hoop. Flip it over to the back. A pair of scissors that you don't care if they get sticky, and you want to trim away as much of this as you can. Be careful not to cut your runner. It does kind of tear, but not very well. You'll kind of be limited as to what you can tear. Cut cut away most of it. If you want, you can also cut away any little threads. Now we want to dissolve it. You can kind of see the stabilizer through the front. If it doesn't really bother you, you can just leave it. But at some point, if you need to wash it, it's wash away, so it will dissolve. Here's a piece of it. Just going to stick it on my hand. Spray a bottle of water. You'll put it in cool water and let it sit about 20 seconds, and it'll start to dissolve. Do you see that? It just disappears. Now it gets sticky, so when I do this, I do not let this soak in my sink. I put it in something, in a bowl, or if you've got like a 9x13 Pyrex dish, something like that, you know, the rectangle baking dishes, a turkey pan, something like that. Fill it with cool water, let it sit, 15 to 20 seconds. I would set it this way, and then just kind of start rubbing it, and it'll dissolve just like it did in my hand. Now I can feel it. It's sticky. So you'll know if there's any left because it will be sticky. This is another reason for pre-washing the runner. Mine didn't really shrink, but if it did shrink and you didn't pre-wash, when you went to dissolve the stabilizer, it's going to shrink and pucker around your design, and you don't want that. After you dissolve the stabilizer, it says lay flat to dry. If you're in a hurry for it to dry, I would say get everything dissolved and then roll it up in a towel, squeeze away the excess water, cover it with a pressing cloth, and iron it, and it should dry. That's what I'm going to do because I want to film the end of the video. I'm going to go dissolve my stabilizer. I soaked this and I got the stabilizer off. When you're taking the stabilizer off, you'll find the crosshairs on the back. I did have to get some scissors because some of the crosshairs got caught under the embroidery. You want to trim those away. One thing I found was as I let it soak, I took it like this. This is the back side, and kind of went like that after it had been sitting for a while, and that sort of wadded up the stabilizer, and I could just pull it and get it out of the way. And you're going to want to discard the water outside in the yard, in the dirt somewhere. You don't want to pour that down your pipes. I do want to dry this. I rolled it in a towel. I pressed out the excess water, and now I can press it really carefully with a pressing cloth. But remember that it's got these two little pieces of the PVC embroidery leather and some felt. You don't want to put a hot iron directly on these because you'll melt these and you might burn your felt. The runner is mostly dry. I can still feel a little bit of damp. Here's one side. Here's the other side. I know just where I want to put this. Actually, looks like I got a little dirt on it when I ironed it, so be careful. That doesn't surprise me. Let me know below if you made this runner. How did yours come out? What did you think of the sticky back wash away? I'm thinking next time, if it says sticky back wash away, I might try a sticky back tear away instead. It came out really nice. Let me know what you think of the thread change, and if you made any changes to your runner. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Any comments or questions, leave them below. Thank you for joining me for the applique of the month. This was our first project. On my channel, I also feature Hoop Studio, Perfectly Pieced, some Bella Box projects. Right now I'm working on the Sweetheart Street bench pillow, and I'm running a year-long project for the Perfectly Pieced subscription. We're making a mystery quilt. I'll link everything below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope your runner came out great, and I will see you next time.